At exactly 3:33 a.m., every clock in the world blinked out for one silent second, except for the ones in the attic of 7-year-old Milo S. house, which suddenly started ticking backward. That's when the bookshelf groaned, the wallpaper peeled into a doorway, and a talking frog in a tiny top hat leaped onto his pillow and said, "Quick, we haven't got a minute. The fairy tales are vanishing, and you're the only one who can hear them scream." Milo sat up so fast his pajama hat fell off. "You're talking." "And you're late," croaked the frog, adjusting his monocle. "I'm Sir Hopsalot, royal messenger of the ever-after realm, and at precisely 3:33 tonight, the final page of every classic story turned blank. Cinderella's slipper, gone. Jack's beanstalk, vanished. The Three Little Pigs' house of bricks, not even dust remains. Without endings, the magic is unraveling, and if we don't fix it by sunrise, all the fairy tales will be forgotten forever." Milo rubbed his eyes. "But I'm just a kid. I can't even tie my shoes in under a minute." "Exactly," said Sir Hopsalot, hopping to the window. "You're curious, not a hero. You ask questions. You wonder why the wolf really wanted to blow the house down. You think Rapunzel should have just braided a rope and climbed down herself. That's why the Story Compass chose you." He pointed to Milo's favorite book, the greatest fairy tales of all time, floating in midair, its pages fluttering like panicked birds. A glowing needle spun inside it, then pointed straight at Milo's sock drawer. "Our first clue's in there." With a deep breath, Milo opened the drawer and yelped. Instead of socks, it was a tunnel spiraling down into a world where candy canes grew like trees, clouds rained lemonade, and the path was paved with old book covers. This was the ever-after realm, a kingdom built from every story ever told. But it was falling apart. The castle of Sleeping Beauty was sinking into a bog of forgotten dreams. The gingerbread house wept chocolate tears, and the great library of legends had shelves full of books with no words at all. "The curse of the blank page," Sir Hopsalot whispered. "It spreads when children stop believing the stories matter. When they say, 'That's not realistic,' or 'Girls don't fight dragons.'" Milo clenched his fists. "Then we'll remind them." Their first stop was the village of forgotten endings, where characters wandered in circles, confused. Snow White stirred a pot of soup, but couldn't remember who she was cooking for. The ugly duckling sat on a rock, still unsure if he was a swan. And Peter Pan hovered just above the ground, his wings flickering like a broken light bulb. "I can't fly if no one imagines me," he sighed. Milo's heart ached. He climbed onto a stump and shouted, "What if the stories change? What if Cinderella doesn't need a prince, but opens a ballroom for everyone, no glass slippers required? What if the wolf learns to build houses instead of blowing them down? What if the happily ever after isn't about perfection, but about trying, failing, and trying again?" A hush fell. Then, Snow White smiled. "I do like cooking. Maybe I'll start a bakery." The ugly duckling stretched his wings. "I'm not ugly. I'm just different. And different is powerful." And Peter Pan shot into the sky with a whoop, his wings blazing with starlight. One by one, the stories rewrote themselves. The curse cracked, but the source of the magic leak was deeper. The Hall of First Lines, where every fairy tale began. There, in a cage of tangled words, was the story spark, a tiny golden bird that sang the first words of every tale, once upon a time. But its song was weak, its light dim. "It's losing hope," Sir Hopsalot said. "Because fewer children are starting the stories. They're too busy, too distracted, too afraid to imagine." Milo stepped forward. He didn't have a spell, no magic wand, just his voice. So he sat cross-legged in front of the cage and began. "Once upon a time, there was a boy who didn't think he was brave. He told a story about a shy kid who saved a kingdom not by fighting, but by listening, by asking questions, by caring. As he spoke, the bird glowed brighter. Then it sang, and its song rippled through the realm like a wave of light. The books refilled. The endings returned, but richer, wiser, kinder. The clocks in the real world ticked forward again. When Milo opened his eyes, he was back in bed, sunlight warming his face. His book lay closed. But when he opened it, a new story was written on the first page. Milo and the Night the Stories Needed a Kid. And in the corner, a tiny illustration of a frog in a top hat waved at him. At school that day, during story time, a new student sat alone, too nervous to speak. Milo walked over, sat beside her, and said, "Want to hear a secret?" At 3:33 a.m., the fairy tales talk. And last night they said, "They need more kids like you." And as the girl smiled, somewhere deep in the attic, a bookshelf creaked, just a little, waiting for the next curious child to listen. Because magic doesn't need a crown. It just needs someone who wonders what happens next, and that more than any spell is the most powerful thing in any fairy tale.